Well, something I didn't really expect to happen yesterday happened. Pitt Athletic Director Allen Greene spoke. Sort of. Publicly. Sort of. He released the video. Exactly 2 minutes, 120 seconds of speaking on a video on the official Pitt channel on YouTube. Allen Greene spoke to the public, addressed the Pitt fans directly, addressed Panther Club members, which he sort of emphasized a few times, addressed them directly and said some things. Some things. What did he say? Well, so what should I do here? Should I go into our intro music first, or should I let you hear the Allen Greene clip first? I tell you what, we're going to do the intro music, then we're going to hear from Allen Greene, then we're going to talk about what Allen Greene should be saying and what we want to hear from Allen Greene. Well, let's talk about Pitt's athletic director, 6 months on the job here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I should have planned that better. I should have had a clear and distinct idea and plan of how we were going to do it. But this is how we're doing it now. A little bit of an intro, some intro music. I talk for a minute or two. You hear from Allen Greene for 2 minutes. And then we talk about what Allen Greene should be saying to Pitt fans and what Pitt fans want to hear from their athletic director. Of course, you know the deal. This is the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's a Tuesday. And you know what we always ask you to do, whether it's a Tuesday or any day of the week, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. The subscribe button is right down there. The like button's a little thumbs up. You can hit that as well. And if you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, you can turn on your notifications so you get an alert every time we go live. You'll never miss any of our Pitt video content, these daily morning Pitt videos, our weekly live show every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m., our post-game shows, our press conferences, interviews, all those different things. It's all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and you won't miss any of it if you subscribe and turn on your notifications at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then, of course, the website below, Panther-Lair.com. It's a place to get all the Pitt sports on the 247 Sports Network. Pitt football, basketball, recruiting week, transfer portal, everything like that. We cover it at Panther-Lair.com, and on the message boards, Pitt fans get together and talk about Pitt sports. It's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find, and it's all right there at Panther-Lair.com. All right, Allen Greene had a message for you. Yesterday was apparently the 6-month anniversary of his hiring, or so he says. I'm not fact-checking that, largely because I'm not fact-checking anything that he says in this video. And you'll probably understand why. 2 minutes exactly on the dot, a YouTube video from the official Pitt YouTube channel. Allen Greene addressing you, the Pitt fans. Here's what he had to say.
Hello, Panther Club members. I was recently reminded that just 6 months ago, I was introduced as the athletics director at your University of Pittsburgh. I don't usually celebrate half anniversaries, but the occasion does provide me the opportunity to reach out and say thank you to the Pitt community for your tremendous welcome. I've long admired Pitt as an academic institution and an athletic program. The last 6 months has given me an up-close view of what makes this place truly special. Pitt pride is everywhere. I've felt it, I've heard it, and been so inspired by it. Wearing that blue and gold means something, and I'm honored to help represent this great university and this athletics department. I continue to receive meaningful feedback. I especially value the opinions of our Panther Club members, as you all have chosen to make a financial investment in our success. There's no question that it's an understatement to say college athletics is undergoing historic change. I want you all to know that we haven't just been monitoring those changes, but we've been actively planning and strategizing to ensure that Pitt athletics is strongly positioned to achieve at the highest levels in this new era. Part of our work over the last 6 months involved creating a structure to align with our goals. Now that we have our team in place, I'm excited to spend more time in and around our community. Working together, we can ensure that Pitt's next chapter will be our very best chapter. On a personal note, I'm excited at the end of the school year to have my wife and my kids join me in Pittsburgh. I assure you, they're eager to become Pittsburghers. And we look forward to seeing you in person, on campus, and in our new hometown. Thank you again, Panther Club members, and hail to Pitt.
I don't know what you would call that. It's not really a call to action, really. It's kind of recapping the last 6 months, or maybe just saying that 6 months have passed since Allen Greene was introduced as Pitt's new athletic director. I don't know what that is, other than saying we've been here 6 months. We've got our team in place. He said that. We've got our team in place, and they hired a couple people, moved a couple people out. So he said that, and appreciate Pitt fans, appreciate Panther Club members for their support. Allen Greene has not had a lot to say over the course of his first 6 months, and I don't, I think Pitt fans have been restless about this, and I understand why. Personally, I haven't gotten too worked up about it myself, about Allen Greene being quiet. I think Allen Greene has done 3 instances of media or press or whatever you want to call it. He sat down with Andrew Stockey of television's Channel 4. He was on it's not exactly state media, but member of the athletic department, Pat Bostic, with his radio show on Saturday morning on The Fan. He was a guest there, and then he talked to our good friend Stephen Thompson from the Post-Gazette about a month ago, actually a month ago from today. That article ran in the Post-Gazette about what the future holds in NIL and the House settlement, et cetera, et cetera. And that's it. And that's what Allen Greene has done since his first day on the job, or since he was introduced at a press conference last fall. He's done those 3 things. So 1 TV, 1 on Pat Bostic's radio show, and 1 for the Post-Gazette. That's been the extent of his media exposure thus far. He's been around. He's been at games and practices and things like that. I think there's a middle ground between an athletic director who talks to the media every week or something, which I don't think actually happens, and where the situation that Heather Lyke was in before her dismissal from the position, where she really wasn't talking to anyone ever, like media-wise. She wasn't speaking to the public, and she was keeping a pretty low profile there for the last couple of years. There's a balance in there, and I don't think that the athletic director necessarily needs to have a monthly press briefing. I think something once or twice a year, at least a couple of times a year probably would be good, just to get an update on things and kind of know where things stand and be able to communicate that with the public. I also understand that Allen Greene was just hired 6 months ago, and so a lot of this time has been spent kind of working through getting the lay of the land, as he says, and getting settled and putting things in place and whatnot. And I think there is a lot that's happening behind the scenes. I think the public silence doesn't necessarily reflect, inactivity behind the scenes. I think there's still a lot happening. I think there's a lot being done and plans are being put in place. And one of the most relevant quotes I think I remember from Allen Greene, it was when he was on Pat Bostic's radio show, and he said something to the effect of, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So for me to sit here and tell you, well, this is what we're going to do, that would be, a bit misguided, because we don't know the exact parameters. And we've already seen that here in the last couple of weeks, where we all thought we knew exactly what this is going to look like. And the judge said, well, hold up a second. There's a couple issues that I have before we're going to, push this thing through. Even if you guys have already started making moves based on what you think it's going to be, that doesn't necessarily tie me to having to do it that way. And so, I understand sort of a bit of discretion when it comes to talking about plans and laying out what's going to happen or how Pitt's going to approach this new era with revenue sharing and salary caps and whatnot. So I get that. But at the same time, I think there are some things Pitt fans would like to hear. They would like to hear about, and they would just like to hear some sentiments they would like to hear issued from the athletic director, and some topics they would like to hear the athletic director talk about. And I think he's keeping things very close to the vest. I think he's keeping things very quiet and, low key, behind closed doors and all those different things, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean Pitt fans don't want to hear about some of those things. And so in the great tradition of sports talk radio, we're doing 5 things. It's a list of 5 things because that's how you're supposed to do it. In reality, this is probably going to be more like 6 or 7 or 4 or something like that. But we'll shoot for 5. 5 things Pitt fans would like to hear from Allen Greene. 5 questions Pitt fans would like Allen Greene to answer. And the first one, which I don't think in any of those 3 media opportunities, Andrew Stockey, Pat Bostic, or Stephen Thompson, I'm not sure any of them got a clear answer, and maybe I missed it, to this very simple question. Is Pitt going to give the full amount of rev share available? Because revenue sharing, I think the cap is $20.5 million, and that's a cap, not a minimum. It's not a requirement to hit that number. It's just you're not allowed to go over that number. And one of the questions facing a lot of schools, I think, probably the very top of the Big Ten and SEC and maybe a handful of schools outside of that, there's no question. It's obvious. Nobody even needs to ask the question, are you going to go to the full cap? They're going to do it. But for Pitt and those other schools in the great middle of college sports, there is a question. Even if the answer is probably yes for all of them, whether they should or shouldn't do it, they probably will. Even if that's the answer, it's still a question worth asking, and it's a question worth hearing a person in a position of authority answer. Are you going to go for the full $20.5 million? Now, we've heard, talking to different people behind the scenes and sources and all of this, that is the intention, that they're going to go with 20.5, that they're going to go and give the full load to the players, the full share to the players, which is probably what they need to do. You don't want to be known as the school that's not giving the players as much as you possibly can, even if it's more than you possibly can, which leads into sort of the second part of this first question. If you're going to go with the full rev share, how are you going to pay for it? And we've talked about this a lot of times. We've gone over about, it's cutting sports, it's cutting positions, it's laying people off, it's cutting, costs wherever you possibly can to try to add up to that $20.5 million that you weren't necessarily accounting for in the past. Not all of that is going to be a direct payment from the school. Some could be, I think some of the NIL that is worked through the school, when that becomes the way things are being done, some of that I think could count toward the $20.5 million, and so you're not necessarily just coming up with $20.5 million cash that you didn't necessarily have before, but you're still going to have to come up with a lot. And within this question of, are you going to give the full amount, and if so, how are you going to pay for it? There's sort of a subset of questions about, what are the fans going to be asked and or forced to do? Are you going to tack on $10 to every ticket that you don't have a choice about paying? It's just in there, and that money is going to go. So, to the players in the rev share. So the ticket prices will go up. You can't do anything about it. You're not choosing to pay that money, but you're going to pay it anyway. Is that going to be the move? Or what kind of fan initiatives are you going to put into place? What are you going to do to raise this money? How are you going to pay it? And how much of that burden is going to fall on the fans to give more than they already do? That is probably the first question I think anybody, with an opportunity to speak with Allen Greene, the first question you would ask is, are you going to go for the full 20.5? And if so, how? The second question, and actually there's probably a strong contingent of Pitt fans on Panther-Lair.com who might ask this question first, what does Jeff Capel's future look like? Because I think there are some general athletic department policy and revenue and finance questions that every Pitt fan is interested in. But there's also some individual specific things, like what is Jeff Capel's future? 7 seasons at Pitt, 1 NCAA tournament appearance, and 1 near miss. Allen Greene, what is your take on that? Like very simply, is that good enough? And if it's not, what does that mean? If that record on its surface, 1 tournament appearance in 7 years is not good enough, are you kind of hand waving away the first 4 years like some of us have allowed ourselves to do and have done over the past couple of seasons, particularly after they made the tournament? It became much easier to hand wave away those first 4 seasons, which were oh so bad. But since things have seemingly declined or gone downhill since then, I think those questions come up again. And within this question, to Allen Greene. What is Jeff Capel's future? What does it look like? What bar does he have to meet or reach? There becomes that question about buyouts. That if he falls short again, that if this year is even worse than last year, which was a step down from the year before, which was a step down from the year before. If you continue climbing down that mountain, do you find yourself considering the buyout, and making a move in that way? And if you do, and this is kind of, reversing course on the direction of these questions, but if you do decide you're going to do that and go that route, how do you justify it? Because remember how we're talking about you got to come up with $20.5 million? How are you going to justify giving 8 figures to make someone go away? Or even 7 figures? Because every penny that pays someone to go away is a penny that could be going to the players. So how do you justify it if that's the route you go? And maybe Allen Greene would say that would never be the route we would go. We would not pay that kind of a buyout. We will stick with our coaches and try and give them all the resources they need to win, but we're not going to fire somebody and pay them that much to go away. Maybe that would be the answer. It would be great to ask. It's a question that I think most fans would like to hear from the athletic director about, and I think it's a question the athletic director can rightfully be expected to answer. Question number 3, similar lines. What's the bar for Pat Narduzzi? What does Pat Narduzzi's future look like? Both of these coaches are signed, I think, both through 2030, I think. So what does it look like for Narduzzi? There are a lot of numbers that make it look like Narduzzi has done really well. Draft picks and ACC wins since he got here. He's one of the top 2 or 3 programs in the conference in both of those categories, which are very strong indicators of success. He's got an ACC championship. He's got multiple ACC championship game appearances. But it's not all roses, right? You come out of that really strong 2-year run of 2021 and 2022, and he's won 10 games over the last 2 years. He had a 3-9 season. He lost 6 games in a row after starting 7-0. So what's got to happen there? What are you looking for there? What do you want out of the football program? And really, it's the underlying question for both of these. What is Jeff Capel's future? What is Pat Narduzzi's future? The underlying question is, what are the expectations? What's realistic for what you consider success? I know we want to win championships every day, and we're trying to build championship experiences, and we want champions in the classroom and all that. Yeah. What constitutes success? Not something you're writing down on paper, not something you're putting in a press release, not something you're putting in 2-minute video on YouTube. What constitutes acceptable success in those 2 programs? Your most prominent programs and biggest programs and the programs you absolutely need to succeed. What constitutes success? And the answer is probably an uninspiring one. Everybody wants to win championships, and you're not allowed to say that anything less than a championship is acceptable. But the reality is that there are outcomes that fall below championships that are acceptable and should be acceptable. Consistently making the NCAA tournament 3 out of 4 years, 3 out of 5 years, something like that. That's acceptable, or better. 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, or better. That's acceptable success. Consistently finishing in the top 3 to 6 of the ACC in football would, I think, be acceptable success. And it might not have you in the national championship game. It might not have you in the playoffs, but you can be competitive in the conference. And I think that would constitute success. But Allen Greene, where's the bar for you? Where do you see the level these programs should be at? And those are questions that I think Pitt fans would love to hear from Allen Greene about. And when we talk about Allen Greene or what his answers might be to these questions, look, he's an athletic director, and athletic directors they're bureaucrats. They're not going to give you a straight answer on just about anything. And so the reality of what kind of success Jeff Capel needs to achieve or what kind of success Pat Narduzzi needs to achieve, we're never going to get a real answer on that question. And I understand that, and you understand that. We've all been around this long enough to know, but we'd still like to ask. Question number 4. as you move into this revenue sharing era, assuming everything goes forward the way people expect it to, $20.5 million in revenue sharing each year for the student athletes at your school, how do you balance football, men's basketball, and everything else? And this, to me, is a fascinating question because there's a cold cynicism in the reality that football and men's basketball make all the money. Everything else doesn't. Some schools, it makes some money. Some schools have more prominent programs, but it's football and men's basketball. And so if that's the case, if that's what's making you the money, do you just put all your resources into those sports? Does the entirety or vast majority, like upwards of 85, 90% of your revenue sharing go to those sports? If it does, you're going to effectively gut most of the other sports because their top talent will go to schools that are investing more in volleyball, women's basketball, baseball, wrestling, etc. But every bit that you take away from, which side was it? This side, football and men's basketball, to try and bolster up some of those other sports, guess what? That's less resources you have available for football and men's basketball. And you want to be sentimental and you want to be a good administrator and you want to do what's right to build champions every day. And you should do those things. You should do what you can to support all the programs, to build champions in every sport. But you need to make money. And you need the sports that make you money to have the resources that they need to succeed. I don't know how you balance that. And that's a question I would like to ask Allen Greene, not because I necessarily need the answer to it. There's not major, it is a major policy decision on how you balance this, but just on a philosophical level. How do you balance supporting and adequately funding the sports that don't really make you any money? How do you balance that with making sure the sports that do make you money get the resources they need? And that's a question that, you hope you hired really smart people, from Allen Greene through the people he's hired to staff the athletic department. You hope you've hired smart people who can find a way to balance that in a manner that gives everyone a chance to succeed. Final question. All right. And this kind of ties into a whole lot of things and maybe the general fear of Pitt fans and fans at lots of schools across the country. How far into the future can Pitt compete? Or maybe say it even in a shorter way. How can Pitt compete? And whether we're talking about Pitt or we're talking about the ACC or we're talking about just everybody else who's not the Big Ten and SEC. How does this program, how does this school, this athletic department stay relevant and competitive in a world where those two conferences are taking over and have taken over and will continue to take over? How do you keep yourself relevant? How do you keep yourself in the conversation? How do you keep yourself at the big kids table? Because every team and every school that's not in those two conferences is dealing with this concern right now. And rightfully so. And every fan base outside of those two conferences is dealing with this fear. That in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, my favorite school is going to be left out. And where are we? Is my favorite school, which has been in a power conference ever since the concept started existing, is my school going to be in a mid-major conference? Is my school going to be relegated to G5 or worse status? Is my school going to become part of everybody else? And we're going to watch from afar as the top of the sport continues to move forward, and the rest of us are stuck back here. I guess what I'm saying with this last one, what Pitt needs, what Pitt fans need, I should say, is a 2-minute video from Allen Greene telling everyone everything's going to be okay. a 2-minute video from Allen Greene coming out and saying, we are going to get the money we need. We are going to use it wisely. We are going to stay competitive, and we are going to make ourselves so good and so relevant that they would never dream of kicking us out, that they would never imagine of not giving us a seat at the table. Like, what do Pitt fans need the most from Allen Greene right now? What do they need to hear the most from Allen Greene? I know I just laid out all these questions, but it's not what he's going to do about Jeff Capel, or what kind of success you have to get out of the football program, or how much of the rev share is going to be spent, or how you're going to raise that money and all. I mean, Pitt fans want to know all of those things, but I think they'd really like somebody to just say, it's going to be okay. We're going to compete. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to compete. We're going to be competitive. We're important, and we're going to stay important. And we probably won't get that. We probably won't get that reassuring, pep speech, pep talk. Probably not going to get that. We'll get what you always get from athletic directors and people in those kinds of positions: canned responses about living like champions or something. And it's fine. That's what it is. That's what they do. That's what it's like. You ask a coach about the team they're playing, and you ask Narduzzi or something about the upcoming opponent, and let me tell you, they're all Super Bowl champions. And so you get that. You know what you're going to get in these situations. But that's what Pitt fans, I think, that's what Pitt fans need the most. Somebody say, you know what? No matter where college sports goes, Pitt is going to be relevant, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure no one can ignore us. And cut a promo. You need to cut a promo. 120 seconds of Allen Greene saying we are going to force them to reckon with us. I don't know if you would do that or not, but hey, when you get to the 1-year anniversary next fall, I would recommend that that's what Allen Greene does. Now, this would have been the time to do it, because you run the risk that 1-year anniversary was in the fall. You're going to be in the middle of football season and maybe right near the beginning of basketball season, and you're going to run the risk of, on-field and on-court results not exactly backing up your bravado. So now would be the time to cut that promo and get everybody excited, or at least feel a little reassured. All right, that's what I think Allen Greene should answer. That's the questions I think Pitt fans would like to ask Allen Greene. Let me know what you would want to hear from the University of Pittsburgh athletic director the next time he takes to YouTube for a couple minutes, or the next time he takes questions or things like that. Let me know what you would want to hear. And hey, maybe we'll get to ask him questions at some point, and then you can maybe some of your questions will make the cut. Oh, speaking of your questions making the cut, we've got our mailbag post up on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. We got a few questions left over from last week. We'll definitely be adding more for this week in the Morning Pitt on Friday, the mailbag edition. So get your questions in there about Pitt football, basketball, recruiting, or anything else. We'll take as many questions as we can, and we always look forward to doing that on Friday. All right, thanks for tuning in today. Make sure you like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, let me know what you think. What would you ask Allen Greene? What would you like to ask him about? All right, check out the website below for this conversation, Panther-Lair.com. Have a good Tuesday, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.